Hello and welcome to today's broadcast. We're so excited that you are joining us today. And it's an exciting day because we just saw that Panasonic launched a new camera and we're going to be talking all about it. While you're waiting, do me a favor and put in the comments where you're joining from. Just about 3 minutes left before we get started. Looks like we already have people joining and letting us know where they're joining from. So hello to you. If you could do me a favor and put in the comments where you're joining us from. With a minute left to go, our audience is not only across the nation, but it looks like it's across the pond as well. I'm getting pumped. Only 50 seconds before we get started. Oh, sorry. I was vlogging this actually because that's what we are talking about today. An all new camera from Panasonic, and I'm super excited. So I have to tell you, as when I said I was pumped on the kind of the pre-roll there, my watch actually came up and said it's time to breathe. So like I think my heart rate was actually spiking on that. I'm pumped for this this chat with a very good friend of mine, amazing boss too. So Mark used to actually be my manager at Panasonic and just all around awesome person. So we're gonna get him in here in just a second. But I wanted to say hello to some of the people that are joining us. Hello, Brad. Greetings from Breezy Mentor, Ohio. Hello, Mark. I might say this wrong. Fries from Switzerland. Hello, Mike Vrobel from Copley, Ohio. Jim Summers, guess what today it is? It is Hump Day! Checking in from Wadsworth, Ohio. My friend Tim Hoffman from Boston, Mass. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Pam DeCamp from Southern Ohio. Hello, hello. And then I was wondering what part of Switzerland, and Geneva. So it's an international audience today. So thank you all so much for joining us today as we get hands-on and talk about the G100. So someone that has a lot of experience with not only the G100, but Panasonic cameras in general is Mr. Mark Toal, the voice, if you will. Mirrorless Mark, the Lumix legend. He has many, many names. But hi, Mark. How we doing, man? Can you hear me okay? Are we?
I can. I'm getting a bit of an echo. Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can. We'll try to troubleshoot that a little bit. I'm not hearing any echo on my side.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about, if we could just push through it. Tell us about like what do you do at Panasonic and kind of what is your role there, and
Okay.
you know why are you on the show today?
Okay. Sounds good. So by the way, I am from Portland, Oregon, just so you can add that to the mix. Yeah. Why am I on the show today? That's a good question. Okay. So yeah. So again, I'm sorry. I'm hearing myself like 2 seconds later in my headphones. Any suggestions?
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump over to some announcements, just back out of the show,
Okay.
and we'll go through, and I'll go over my announcements first. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. So just some housekeeping notes with Pixel Connection. We are doing our part for COVID-19 and making sure that you guys are aware that our doors are open for you to come into the store, and we've been open now for a little while. So what can you expect when you come in store? Number one, our facility is disinfected multiple times per day. We are doing our part to make sure surfaces, any cameras that are touched, we have our fancy face masks like I have here. We are ready for you to have a comfortable experience when you are shopping at the store. And just because the store is open doesn't mean necessarily that you have to come in the store. Don't feel obligated to come in when you purchase something. If you feel more comfortable staying in your car, if you feel more comfortable, having stuff shipped to your door, then you can absolutely do that as well. We have curbside available. We have shipping on, thousands of items on our website. So we just want you to be as safe as possible, but still supply you with any of your camera needs. So we are doing that in store. I also wanted to let you know that we are offering, if you watch our social media, we are doing different things throughout the week. So last week we had a film giveaway. So for film shooters, we're constantly pushing the envelope as far as getting people involved. So if you haven't already, do us a favor and go over to Instagram and type in the.pixel.connection, and you'll be able to follow along. We're showcasing the artists, we are showcasing our guests, things that we're finding on the internet. We're sharing that with you guys. So if you are looking for other areas that you can interact with us or feel inspired, definitely do that as well. So what are our goals for today? Number one is to pull you away from the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's going on. Just pull you away, even if it is for a half hour, 45 minutes, and just talk about photography. In this case, a new camera that was released from Panasonic Lumix, one that I've shot now for the last couple of days, and I'm super excited about this camera. And just the fact that manufacturers are pushing out these updates, whether it's a camera, whether it's a lens, it just is some semblance of getting back to normal. So my goal is to pull you away from what's going on in the rest of the world and talk about your favorite hobby, which is photography. Also, my goal is to get you motivated to try something new, something outside of your comfort zone. So if you've never thought about a Panasonic camera, if you've never thought about vlogging. If you've never thought about these things, then it's my goal to get you motivated to try something outside of your comfort zone. And also, maybe I'll help you discover a new niche, something that could be profitable in your business. So, the tool that we're going to be talking about today specifically is really, really good at video. So maybe you want to, you don't want to spend thousands of dollars on, getting good quality video, with what Panasonic's offering now. You can do that at a much affordable rate. So that's what we are talking about today. And if you do have any questions, you can always reach out, and we share any resources that you might need. And you can email us at social@thepixelconnection.com. So that is my stalling for the time. Let's go ahead and see if we can talk to Mr. Mark. How we doing, man?
I'm still hearing double. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So will you be able to push through it?
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay, cool. So what we were talking about, so Mark works at Panasonic. He is, amongst other things, he helps run a lot of the field team. So when I was at Panasonic as a tech rep, Mark was my boss, and he's been around for a long time with Panasonic. So he has a great depth of knowledge. And that's when, I first heard about this camera. I got my reservation in as soon as I could to get Mark on the show, because Mark does photo and video, but what I think is important with this camera is just talking about experience of, the product line just over the last couple years and kind of what got us to this point. So if you don't know about this camera, it is the new G100 from Panasonic. Couple unique features that I'll cover really quick are, fully articulating screen, and it's a very thin screen. It's kind of hard to show this on video, but from what I've read, it's one of the thinnest that have come on a interchangeable lens camera. And what I noticed yesterday while I was shooting was it is super bright too. It's a very bright LCD, easy to see outside. It's a nice size LCD. It's definitely not small by any stretch of the imagination. It is touchscreen. You can use it as like your autofocus or navigating the menus. So that was the one thing that I noticed. The viewfinder and the screen are top notch. I mean, they're very, very good quality. As far as the size too, and Mark, you had another camera there that you were going to compare it to, correct?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Do you have your G1 that you can hold up?
Yes, I do. Yes, so I have two cameras here. I have the the G100 and the actually have a GX85. Okay. And,
so you can see between these cameras. I mean, this is what I love, and Mark and I had talked about this a little bit yesterday, is just this kind of return to that camera that is small enough, lightweight enough that you can take anywhere with you. And one thing that I noticed with Panasonic is the cameras, especially like the G series, they were more of a full size camera, where this is more of a departure from that to a small kind of take everywhere with you camera. It's something that, it's small enough to fit, just to throw it in a bag. It still has interchangeable lenses. And I was reading somewhere this morning that it's the smallest interchangeable lens camera with a fully articulating screen. So, is it focused at vloggers? Yeah, I feel like it is. But I think that this camera offers just so much more. And Mark, you've had some time to kind of shoot with the camera. What are your overall impressions so far on the photo and video side?
Okay, and excuse me if there's a delay because I am hearing double, but I'll just go ahead. Okay, so again, my favorite camera, if you guys follow me on online at all, it's either the LX100 or the little GX85. And the reason for this is I want a small camera I can carry everywhere. So when I first opened the box on this camera, on the beautiful G100, the main thing I noticed about it was its size and its weight. I want a camera I can carry everywhere. Again, if you don't follow me, I know a few people on this call. I recognize your names. I'm glad you're here, and you follow me on Instagram. I carry a camera everywhere with me. So this camera, Panasonic has designed this camera, again, like you were saying, as the smallest, lightest mirrorless camera available. And what I like about it too is it's got a very large. Not only does it have the articulating screen, it has a very large viewfinder, which cameras like the GX85 and the LX100 don't have. So again, we've designed this a lot for two reasons. One, for the customer who wants to be a vlogger, which I'm not. So I do videos. You'll see a lot of my videos on Vimeo where I do training videos for Panasonic and things like that. But to be honest with you, I'm not the type of person who's gonna hold this camera out at arm's length and do a video. I just don't have a face for that. But what I immediately noticed as a still photographer is just how much I enjoyed carrying this camera and the incredible quality I get out of it. And I know every manufacturer's rep is going to say that. They're going to say, this is the best camera, this has the best lens. But one thing that I think is underrated about this camera is this lens, this 12 to 32 millimeter, small little collapsible, what people refer to as a kit lens, which kind of gets a derogatory term, but I'm going to show you a few pictures of how sharp this is. So again, this camera is designed for, I see it for two customers. One is the vlogger who might use a phone at the moment, but wants more control, wants to get less depth of field, things that the phone doesn't do well. And a camera where, like, one problem I have when I'm using my phone for video is I'm constantly having to think about the memory. I've got 64 gigs in there and it's going to get full. So this camera solves a lot of those problems. Plus, it gives you access to every lens that we make. So you've got a choice of 30-some Panasonic lenses and Olympuses and everything else. Another thing this camera has, too, is very easy-to-use controls. So again, I was basically like a GX85 user, G85 user, the G9. And again, this camera, what it does is it strips down some of those controls, and I'll show you the buttons and things on it, to just the features that you need. You know, a good example is I use Wi-Fi a lot on this camera. So when you look at my pictures on Instagram or Facebook or even my videos, I take the picture in the field, and I'm the type of person who wants to post it on Instagram immediately. In fact, if you look at my Instagram feed, you'll notice some pictures I posted from a drag race I went to last weekend to try this camera out. And I just sit in the stands and immediately transfer these to my phone. But what we've done on this camera, let me see if I can hold it up correctly here and show you in focus. There is now a button here that allows for one button transfer. So when I go to the play mode and I find the picture I want, I connect to my phone and immediately transfers. I don't have to go look for it anymore. I don't have to tell the app that I'm reviewing pictures or am I taking pictures with it. It just transfers it right over, and I can transfer multiple pictures. But again, let's go back to the vlogging features of this camera a minute. So not only does it have the articulating screen like this, okay, you can shoot this camera vertically. So if you're and not many cameras do this, this is where it really stands out from the other Panasonic cameras. So if you're a vlogger or you do anything on Facebook Live, Instagram Stories, IGTV, even if you're a TikToker, which I'm not, you can hold this camera vertically and shoot vertical video. And then when you transfer it to your tablet or phone or bring it into your computer, it's tagged as a vertical video. So you could put this right on IGTV. And again, this allows you to use all these different lenses and be a lot more creative than you are with a phone. It's also one other thing we did with it to keep it small and light, and so you don't have to have a lot of accessories with it, is we've built in a new microphone system. So all cameras have a built-in microphone, but it generally covers the whole area around you when you're shooting. It's not directional at all. So we're using something called Nokia Ozo technology, and this is the Nokia that is the phone maker that was famous back years ago. They invented a microphone technology for use in phones that allows the microphone to change direction when you're shooting. So if I turn this camera around, let me see if I can actually hold this out so you see it like this. If I'm holding it out like this and shooting a vlogging style video of myself, the microphone turns into a shotgun microphone. It points itself forward. If I move to the right side or the left side, it moves with me, and I can actually then go to the back of the camera and I can set it up so I can turn it into narration. So again, if this is such a small camera, we don't expect a lot of people are going to want to put an external microphone on it, and this solves that issue. Obviously in windy situations and things, a lavalier still helps, but this microphone is just amazing. Again, the controls around it, we've really minimized the controls. So basically what you've got is shutter, video, exposure compensation, transfer for Wi-Fi. On the back, you've got your ISO, your white balance, and things like that. So when I'm out shooting, and again, if I'm going to shoot something professionally for a client or something like that, I'm going to take a G9 or a GH5 because I've got more controls on the outside of the camera. But for what I shoot a lot, which is I'm walking around with this camera, I'm going to the drag races. I have some pictures I'll show you that I shot in an air museum last week. All the controls are on the outside of this camera for me, including a really neat new one for shooting slow motion video. There you go. Thank you, TJ. That's me. So, oops, sorry about that. So one of the things on the dial that's on top here, there is a setting now for S and G, for S and Q, I'm sorry, slow and quick. This allows you to access slow motion video just instantly. You used to have to go into the menu to choose it'll do up to 120 frames a second, but you used to have to go into the menu to do that. Now, I set it up. I usually shoot 120 frames a second slow motion. I don't have a lot of use for fast motion. So I set that up so that as soon as I turn to the S and Q mode, I have, there we go. I have 120 frames per second. I shoot my scene, and then I can flip back to the video settings or the still settings and just continue on with that. So this is like a perfect hybrid camera. But again, what I can't stress enough here, and TJ, I'm going to try to share my screen if that's okay with you. Okay, so.
Share away.
Okay.
And as he's doing that, so I got hands-on with this yesterday. So kind of my thoughts on it. You guys didn't come to hear from me, but you came to hear from Mark. But I just wanted to say that, you know, it's getting a lot of attention for vlogging because it has this big red button on it. But as far as a still camera, you know, I could see if, let's say you are a, you know, parent and you don't want to take a heavy camera with you everywhere, but you want the control of interchangeable lens camera. This is great for that. You want good quality, great quality video with 4K, the fast and slow motion. You have that. I mean, this is that camera that you really don't have to think about, but it's a little bit more than a point and shoot. So if you want a larger sensor, if you want a more tactile, you know, feeling, this is going to be a good camera for you. And I was telling Mark yesterday that, you know, it takes everything that I loved about the G9 and the LX100 Mark II and kind of smushed them together, because the LX100 Mark II, you know, I wanted to throw my 8-18 on there. I wanted to put my 42.5 on there, throw a good macro on there, but I was limited to the lens that came on that. And I also wanted that fully articulating screen because, you know, with the LX100, I wanted to get, you know, the different angles with it. And that was one thing that I couldn't do. Now the camera is about the same size as that, but I'm getting all of those features built in. So let's go ahead and add Mark's video here, or the screen share here, because I want to see some of the stuff that he's created, because I'm interested in some of the still stuff.
Okay, let me.
Yep, you're good. Yeah,
let me know when you can see my my Lightroom screen.
Yep, we're good.
Oh, good. So anyway, I went out shooting a combination of stills and video, and I'll show you a couple here. So this is a good example. I can't stress enough this lens. When I'm in stores and I'm showing this lens to people, and I'm this way too, we can be very snobbish. I've been shooting pictures for much longer than I want to say. And I've always been taught I've always thought that kit lens is, people call it in a derogatory sort of way. But let me zoom in on this picture and look at the detail in this chalk. And this is just a grab shot. I was in a restaurant that recently opened. Restaurants have recently opened here in Portland. And I just pointed the camera. This was in the intelligent auto mode. I love this. This is Paul Bunyan, and this is in Portland, Oregon. So Paul Bunyan would be covered with tattoos. But again, the sharpness of this lens, look at the raindrops on this seat. Okay, and these are all unprocessed photographs. These are right out of the camera. Just things like this. Here's a picture of my granddaughter. Let me zoom in on this. Look at the sharpness of this. And again, it's beautiful because I took her to the beach and I just have this camera basically in a little tiny case to protect it from the sand that I can pull out and just instantly shoot with it. So I went to the Air Museum. And again, I'm shooting with the 12-32 lens for these. Look at the detail in this one here. Bandwidth-wise, I'm not sure it comes across. This is all handheld. The camera has stabilization in the lens, and it has electronic stabilization in the body. So it's equivalent to, depending on what mode you're in, 4 or 5 axis stabilization. So I don't worry about shooting here. I don't worry about shooting at, I'll be honest, but the ISOs go very high on, they can set them very high on this camera. I have no hesitation letting it go to ISO 1600. But again, look at the detail I'm getting in this camera. Now, part of this is it does not have an anti-aliasing filter on the sensor, so you get a little extra sharpness from that. It can cause a little bit of moiré pattern in video, but in a small sensor like this, you don't have a problem with that. Again, look at the depth of field here. This is the spruce goose here. And again, look at this one. So here's an example of something I tried on this camera. So this was a very dark cockpit of this plane, although it looks very bright. So I went in and I turned up the eye dynamic range on this to, I think it was standard on this one. And that brightens up the shadows and brings down the highlights. But I'm finding on this camera, because of the color science that Panasonic has perfected over the years since the G1, the dynamic range of this camera is very, very close to what I'm seeing and what I want to get out of the camera. And these were some difficult lighting situations here. Now, this one, again, I used the eye dynamic setting in order to bring up this is a missile silo that they have in the museum. Let me see what else I can show you here. But I can just keep showing you pictures here, but it's one of those cameras where I just keep getting home and zooming in on the pictures. But let me show you a couple of videos. So again, I'm not a vlogger. I don't have the face for it. And I do a lot of videos where I set the camera on a tripod and I talk into the camera from 2 or 3 feet in front of it while I train on something. But I don't do a lot of things where I actually holding the camera out. But here I did, because one thing that comes up is focus. Every time a reviewer reviews a camera, they review it for focus in video. And I'm not going to comment on that. I'm going to leave that to the vloggers and the reviewers online to talk about that. But I wanted to show you an example. Here I am. I'm in a restaurant. And let me go back here. Sorry about that. I'm in a restaurant, and I'm basically holding the camera out using that small tripod that TJ showed you. And I'm just doing basically a focus test here. I'm moving it out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the camera around. Sorry about the shakiness here. I'm not quite used to this yet. And you can see how quickly it focused on the restaurant. And I'm going to then turn it quickly back to myself, and you can see how quickly it returned back to my face. Okay. So, like I said, I can't speak for what reviewers and actual vloggers are going to find with this, but I shot another example here. And for some reason, I'm getting the spinning wheel. So this is an interesting example. Now, I don't claim this is perfect, and I'm not, but this is an extreme example of video. So TJ talked about how he loves to put other lenses on this. He loves the 8 to 18 millimeter lens. I love the 7 to 14 millimeter lens. I like it because it's light, and I want as wide as possible. So again, this is not, you'll know I'm not a professional videographer, but I want to show you the capability of this camera. This is in full auto. I'm not shooting any manual settings here. I took my granddaughters out for ice cream, and because of the shutdown at the restaurant, we ended up eating in the back of the car. And so I'm going to okay. And you can see how well it's holding focus. Now I move up to my other granddaughter here. It takes a second to focus on her. This is the 7 to 14 millimeter lens at probably about 7 or 8 millimeters, almost wide open. Yeah. Look at the cup, how sharp this is. Now, also watch
and I think that's a really good
how it adjusts for exposure. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, just as far as like run and gun vlogging, this would be the perfect example. And you're not seeing it zoom in, your focus on the back. I mean, you're not giving yourself enough credit here, Mark, because I think this is perfect for the vlogging style. I mean, you're going back and forth and back and forth. You know, I'm looking now, like you said, the cups in focus, her eyes are in focus, with that Ozo audio, getting good quality audio from it. I think that Panasonic hit the mark as far as, what this camera is made for. I mean, that's what I noticed yesterday. As I was walking around, there's a small shopping mall that's near our store. It's called Crocker Park. And I had originally gone in to just vlog about going to buy AirPods. I'm like, okay, I don't really vlog either, but I want to try it. So, I'm like, okay, I'm walking that way and blah, blah, blah. So I went back to the car and I was like, you know what? I want to see, like, to me, that was boring. Like that, I did it, but I want to see what this camera can do. So I took the little handle off the camera and I just wandered around the kind of the shopping center. And I found myself quickly switching from photo to video, slow motion video. And I created this bit of content within a half hour that before I would have to be going through menus, setting, slow motion, doing math for, okay, this is 60 frames, it's going on to a 24p, which one do I need to be at, what shutter speed? And this camera takes all that guessing out of it. And honestly, like it does time lapse, all Panasonic cameras, do some form of time lapse, but I was just able to set this camera down, start the time lapse, do some stuff on my phone, and then look back through and I see all the clouds, passing by. So I don't have to think. So for me, this camera, I think its strongest selling point is not having to think, just getting, for people that are just starting vlogging or just want to get into content creation. I think that's where this really shines, because it has, like you had mentioned, it has that S and Q mode. So right there, between on the mode dial, boom, I'm in slow motion. Okay, well now I want to go to video. Boom, I'm right back to my video, my video setting. I'm recording a little bit of video. Oh, there's something cool I want to photograph. Boom, aperture priority. I'm shooting, I'm seeing that viewfinder. I was quickly going through this stuff, and I noticed myself getting more creative. Before I was, really into the settings and making sure it was just right, where now I'm like, hey, I want to try L monochrome, for some slow motion and just kind of see, what I can create. And for me, I think that's what's super important with this camera, is just that the technology side of it just kind of goes away. You don't have to think about, how to set up the camera like this, for example. I mean, this is just I just saw these little things blowing in the wind, and I just happen to have the L monochrome on. So I get this really cool, dramatic, like black and white slow-mo film, or, and then you'll see within seconds later, I continue to walk around and I have still photos of, different things that I'm seeing, that are happening and unfolding right ahead of me. So, we saw like that little video with the splash, but then, I saw a fire hydrant, taking photos of that. And then boom, we're vlogging, we're back in the store, and I'm just instantly just going quickly through, I saw this bee and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to capture this bee taking off. So I just instantly put it into that slow, quick mode, and I was able to capture this bee taking off. So for me, I really like that the camera kind of gets out of the way and it opens up that creative side. Let's see, he's going to take off. I swear he's going to take off.
I agree. But it still, as you're pointing out, it still does have all the features our other cameras have, like time lapse, like black and white, eye dynamic. It has every setting that the other cameras have. And again, for for a professional photographer who wants to be able to have a button for, like on the G9 and the other cameras for white balance, for exposure compensation, they're here, but that's not who that camera is designed for. This camera is designed for somebody like me. Again, if I'm going to shoot a professional job, I'm going to take my G9 more than likely, right? But for walking around, exposure compensation is probably a setting I use more than anything. Because I like to do dramatic things with it. If I can share a couple more pictures, because I really want to stress let me go back to see if I can, let me know if you can see my screen here again in a second. Let me do this. Okay, let me know if you can see my Lightroom screen again here.
We're good.
Okay, so this again is at the drag races. Now, the other lens I like with this, so I decided, I was trying to think of what second lens I want to carry with this. I took two of them with me. I took the 7-14 because I love that view. That's my favorite lens. But I also took the little 45-150, which again is a lens we packaged with a lot of cameras as a second kit lens and shot video with it. Again, this is just, I'm shooting stills and I literally push the red button to shoot videos like this, and then I go back to the cars and look at this. Look at the sharpness of this. And people talk about how you can't get shallow depth of field with small sensor cameras. Look at the beautiful shallow depth of field back there. Yeah. Here's a still picture, and this picture was probably cropped from about a third of the frame. Look at the sharpness in her eyelashes. This again, this is the 12 to 32 lens. Okay. This one here, I shot this on a walk yesterday morning. So again, you know, we're stressing a lot of this as but I think this is just the ideal hybrid camera, because again, like you're talking about, you know, if you've got that tripod with you, I can just set this down and do yeah, exactly. Thank you for having that. And as I talked to TJ before this, that's my tripod I sent to TJ. So I'm going to send you a FedEx shipping label right afterwards. I realized this morning that I had sent that to you with the G100. So thank you for showing it. So I love this because
yeah, and I'm glad that you brought it up too, because this is a new product from Panasonic. It is a tripod grip, but what's interesting is you have the shutter button here, so if you want to record, but then you also have or a record button. It'll actuate the shutter, but then you also have a shutter button, and there's some feedback to it to allow for you know, acquiring focus. So if you press it halfway down, it'll actually autofocus, and then you can take the photo. So they've also incorporated, it doesn't just go into just a remote port, it actually goes into the USB port as well. So you can wake the camera up or put it to sleep with the actual remote itself. So again, and I noticed too, the quality of the tripod is great. It snaps back into place, and it does have a ball head, so that way you can put it in different angles. So it moves all around, and it's a very sturdy tripod. So like when I tightened it down, I didn't have to worry about the camera falling over. So I did want to kind of make mention of this new accessory as well that's available for the G100.
Thank you. I look forward to getting it back. So, you know, you're pointing out, so we show it a lot being used in the selfie mode, where you're holding the camera out with the tripod and you're using the shutter and the video button to start it. But because when I did have that tripod before I sent it to you, I also use it when I'm shooting, because I can trigger either video or stills from that without reaching on top of the camera. And I find, like when I'm shooting video, I get a lot less like you get a jarring to the camera when you push the button down. So again, it's a great little grip. It's great for even holding the camera vertically. So again, this camera is a great vlogging camera. Now it shoots, let's talk about the video modes for a second. So it obviously shoots 1080p, all cameras do. It shoots 24, 30, and 60 frames per second. Now, in my using this camera, I really preferred the 60 frames per second. I thought that's where I got the sharpest picture, the best resolution. And again, I'm not. I mean, I know video. I say I'm not a video shooter because I don't. I have 100 and some videos on Vimeo, but I'm not like proud of any of them. I'm not a filmmaker. But what I like about this camera is I use it generally in the. Hold on, somebody's trying to call me here, and I need to get rid of that. So I generally just push the red button and leave it either in the program mode, or I go to the video mode and I leave it in the program mode. And so in 60p, I find that I get the best focus. It'll also do 4K at 24 and 30. It won't do 4K 60p. But again, I think most vloggers are doing 1080p because the size of the files you can get on this camera, on any camera that's shooting in 4K, can just be very hard to deal with. And I just edit my videos in Adobe Premiere Elements. So you can go into the video settings on this camera. You can choose shutter priority, so you can double your shutter speed for your frame rate. It'll even shoot vlog. So for people who do want to process this, again, we keep talking about how this is aimed at the basically user who just wants to produce content and doesn't want to get buried in the details of the camera. But it does shoot vlog. It has all those settings. It lets you do everything, every custom video setting you can do. So if you do want to do post-processing on these, you use Final Cut Pro or Premiere, you've got that. You've got the ability to do that. So again, let me share my screen for just a second here. Again,
and I'm going to ask in the comments too. So what questions do you have about this camera or Panasonic as a whole? We did have a question. Is this camera weather resistant?
No, it's not. No, it's definitely not. Now, let me.
Comments too. So what questions do you have about this camera or Panasonic as a whole? We did have a question. Is this camera weather resistant?
No, it's not. Yeah. No, it's. Yeah. So what I'd like to say is, so I live in Portland, Oregon, where it rains a lot. It's not weather resistant, and there's no way I'm going to pretend like it is. But it's small enough that I can just put it in my jacket pocket. Like when I was at the drag races, it started to sprinkle a little bit. I just put it in my pocket and then take it out when I'm going to take a picture. Yeah.
Excellent. That's the only question that we have so far.
Okay. So again, let's talk a little bit about where this fits into the lineup, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. So people have asked me, it's like, okay, you've got another camera here. Oh, good. People say you've got a G7, you've got a G85, you've got a G9. So again, this is if you compare it, this is very similar to the G85. And the main difference is this camera has got these features that are designed for the vlogger, the video person, and it's got the simplified controls. So it's a lot of what we've learned from those cameras that people want in a camera. We've listened to what users have asked for, and I'm one of them. I've always asked for a camera that is a little simpler to use, that just has the controls on the outside. I don't need 9 function buttons. Like this camera will do 4K photo like all of our cameras will, where you can shoot 4K video and pull a frame from it. But I use that very limited. Let's say when I'm at a rodeo or something, I don't necessarily want a button for that on the outside of the camera. So now it's available, but I have to go into the menu to do it. Again, this is similar to the G7 camera, but think of it as I think of it as the new version of the G7. Things like you have to, it's one of the first cameras. There are other cameras that do vertical video, but nowadays you have to do vertical video if you're going to appeal to a vlogger or somebody who's using a phone, because if you watch TikTok or Instagram TV, everything has to be vertical. One of my favorite features of this camera, and I don't know if I can, if I've got a slide that shows it, is one of my favorite things. And somebody asked me, they said, what's your favorite feature? And I think they expected me to say 1,000 frames per second or something, is when you're shooting video and you push that video button and you have this camera pointed towards you, or even if you're looking at it from behind, it puts a bright red box around the screen to show you it's shooting video. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've started to shoot video and I haven't pushed the button in far enough and I can't see the little countdown number or the red dot blinking, and I'm not actually shooting. And then when I stop, I'm actually starting. Now, when I push that video button, either on the tripod or on the camera, I see a box completely around that screen, and I know I'm shooting video. There's just no mistaking about it. But again, I think in this one, where we started with the G7, we continued with the G85, there you go, perfect. I love that feature. Okay. And so again, what we've done in this is kind of refined everything. Over the G7, let's say, it's got and the G85, it has the 20 megapixel sensor as opposed to the 16 megapixel sensor. So it's got a more advanced sensor. Doesn't have the anti-aliasing filter, so it's going to give you a little bit sharper picture. We've beefed up the video features. It's got slight improvements in the processor and things like that. But again, I think we've made a camera that is, again, designed for that person who wants something that's easy to use. Again, I'm probably the perfect user for this camera. When let me go back to ancient history. When the G1 first came out, I was a Nikon shooter at the time. And I remember Panasonic told me that we're going to make a 4/3 mirrorless camera with interchangeable lenses. And to be honest with you, I thought they were crazy because I was a Nikon shooter and I thought every camera had to be a big, heavy monster. And I got the camera and I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And what I fell in love with first was the size. I found I was taking this camera places that I wouldn't take my Nikon just because I didn't want to carry it, like when I went for a walk or a hike in the park. Or it was raining and I had to carry a backpack to put that in, where I could put that G1 in my pocket. So even if you're, let's say, I think, I don't know, I can't say because this camera it'll ship in about a month, by the way. We should talk about price for just a second. So the camera is going to be $749 with the lens, $749 with the 12 to 32, $799 with the grip. But through July, we're doing a special where we're giving $50 off of each one if you pre-order it, and we're throwing in an extra battery. The battery is not large in this. One of the ways we make cameras small is to make the battery a little smaller, so battery life is reduced. But again, that's what makes this camera. Thank you, TJ, for putting that up there. So again, what I like is this camera just goes everywhere with me. But again, if I'm going to go shoot something, like if I'm going to shoot so I get occasionally hired to do website pictures for a client. I'm going to take the G9. I'm going to take the GH5. This is a perfect complement to those cameras. So one other thing before I forget on this camera, I keep thinking of other things that it'll do, is it will also it'll also do streaming. It has an HDMI port, so it'll stream. Now you have to have a capture device like a Camlink Elgato, the ATM Mini, which is what I'm using here. Like right now, you're seeing me on a GH5, which is being streamed out the HDMI port through a Blackmagic ATM Mini. This will do the same thing, and it does what's called clean HDMI output, where you can turn off all the menus and just see what's on the screen. So, you know, to me, this camera just has so many things that I need that in a carry-around camera for $750. But again, I'm still gonna use that larger camera. I'm probably gonna use my LX100 a little less, although I still love that camera. But again, now I've got interchangeable lenses in a camera this size. Now, you may not put the 1-400 on this lens, you know, but I put the 12-35 on it, the 45mm macro, and they all just fit perfectly. So,
excellent. We did have a question that came in. Is the G100 viewed as a replacement for the G95 or a separate camera designed for vlogging?
It's a separate camera designed for vlogging. No, the G95 stays in the lineup. And again, I think that, and again, yeah, this is my feeling is, so the G95, I use that camera. I think the G95, because it's weather resistant, it's also going to appeal to possibly just that person who likes that larger camera. It has a larger battery and a larger grip, but it doesn't do the vertical video. It doesn't have the fast transfer. So I would say the G95 is a good choice for a person who may shoot more stills, and this is a good camera for a person who shoots both. But if you shoot more stills, the G95 is going to have more capabilities. It's probably going to be the camera for you. Yeah.
Okay. Another question I saw focusing on your videos, but does it offer DFD focus like the G85? So the question is it improved autofocus over the G85?
Yes, it is, but it still uses DFD. So it still uses DFD. We have fine-tuned it over the G85, because the G85 is a couple years old now. So we fine-tuned it, and I don't know if that'll translate back to a firmware update for the G85. But we're going to have to wait for what the reviewers say. That's one area I try to stay out of, because, you know, I'll be honest with you, get these guys online who jump in front of the camera, jump out of the camera. You know, I did that test I showed where I held the camera out and then I turned it around to show the restaurant I was in, and I turned it back, and it worked great. And the latest version of the firmware I had is working great, but I'm not a vlogger. So, you know, in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see vloggers commenting on this, and I would just watch for that. But it still does use DFD, which is depth from defocus, which is for people who don't know what that is. Yeah.
Does it offer USB charging?
Yes. So I see another question about USB charging. Okay. So yes, it does do USB charging. Yes. Yes. In fact, it does not come with a wall charger. It comes with the USB wall block and then a USB cable. But again, we're giving away the extra charger and battery for the next month until at least August 1st. But it is USB charging. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So if there are any more questions, please put them in the chat. Mark, did you have anything else that you wanted to share?
No, I think we've covered everything. You've had the camera. Did I miss anything?
I don't believe so. I am excited for this camera. And if anybody does want to pre-order, if you go to social.thepixelconnection.com, you'll actually see the link for the Lumix G100. You can click on that and it'll take you right to our site. So if this is a camera that you are interested in, definitely take a look at that. And if you do have questions, please let me know. And if I don't know the answer, I can definitely get over to Mark to get your questions answered. So I wanted to take this moment right now to, as you guys are coming up with your questions, to remind you about Pixel Photo Fest. So if you watched the previous broadcast, you know that the format's changed just a little bit. So we're still doing the conference. It's just more of a hybrid conference this year. And anybody who has purchased their tickets for this year's event, you automatically have this year's event and next year's in-person event. So everything's rolled over. And this year, what we're doing is throughout the day, there's multiple, you'll basically log in and you'll see different rooms, just like if you were at a physical conference. So, you show up to the room and then you choose, the speakers that you came to see. And we will have that schedule by July 15th. That'll be published. And you basically click into there and you're able to watch the presenter, all the way until 5 o'clock. So at 5 o'clock, we'll actually do a hands-on shooting demonstration at the Vaults in downtown Cleveland. So actually Panasonic Lumix ambassador, James Schmelzer, is going to be there, and he's going to do a hands-on Hollywood lighting workshop in the Vaults. So if you haven't seen the Vaults, they are in the 9 in the basement in Cleveland, and it's just this really, really cool like early 1920s vibe, and we're going to have everything styled for that shoot. So you're absolutely welcome, if you feel comfortable, to come for the hands-on event. And then from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock, we're actually going to be at the rooftop bar as kind of a networking party, and we're going to ask the models hang out for that as well, so we can see sunset and just hang out at the rooftop bar at the 9. So if that is something that you are interested in, if you haven't signed up already, you can actually use code Lunch and Learn when you are checking out your ticket, and that brings the cost down to $99. So for $99, you get this year's hybrid conference, and then also access to next year's conference as well. So it's definitely, there's a great value with that. We have a bunch of amazing speakers that have already, signed up, and they are going to be there to teach. And for me, it's nice because, I could just sit there and, pull the content and organize my day, and then still go downtown for the hands-on shooting experience. And I promise you, you're going to learn a ton about lighting. James Schmelzer is probably the top master when it comes to lighting in the industry. He's been educator in the industry for 20 or 30 years, from all the big conferences across not only the USA, but he's taught over in London as well. So again, he is he's an amazing resource and the way he teaches is it just makes sense. He's very, he doesn't get into, you need to set at this ratio, or, he just says, okay, you put the light here, this is the why behind it, this is what you're trying to do with that light. So he's just a very good hands-on instructor, and that's why we chose him to do our hands-on demonstration. So hopefully you will join us for that. So it doesn't look like we have any questions that came in. So thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today. I appreciate it. I appreciate you, and I can't wait to shoot with this camera even more.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about
Thanks, Mark. Have a good one.
Sorry about the audio problems. I hope it didn't cause too much delay in my answers.
No, it's very good. We appreciate your time, and I hope everybody has a great day. We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.